This conference will now be recorded.
Hi guys, good morning. Good morning or good evening or good afternoon, whatever. Maybe good evening and good afternoon. Or good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So, welcome back. This will be, from today we'll be starting we will be following and starting the official curriculum that whatever we had shared. Uh, and So this will be a kind of 1 hour training session per day, which will cover the entire AZ 103, right? So that is the agenda, right? And if you guys haven't got the course content, that is there in the link that which is shared by Lakshmi on WhatsApp, on the Google Drive. Just go through that. And if you feel that there is something that which is missing and is needed, and if that is part of the curriculum, then we'll definitely go and add it. Okay, so just go through that, and if you have any questions around that, then feel free to ask. So to start with the first session, let us go with what exactly, how do we start and where do we start, right? The first thing first is having your own Azure account, right? So let us first start from there, right? So I'm not sure how many of you were there in yesterday's demo class, but there was a discussion around having a free trial account, right? So to have a free trial account, that is very much needed for us to practice. So just go to Google and right, and then search for free trial subscription, and then the second link, that whatever you see, will take you to the page where you can go and subscribe yourself. So this is needed, and have this created, and then you can start your labs on your own without depending on anybody else. So that is the mandatory requirement, right? And before you go and subscribe to this, you should have the requirement for subscribing yourself to the Azure portal or having a subscription is: one, a credit card; two, your uh, mobile number and some identity, right? So mobile number, and then three, identity, which here in India it asks PAN number, right? And email address. So all these things are kind of binded to each other. So when you try to use the same mobile number again, it will not after your expiry of the subscription. So when you subscribe yourself, you get 30 days trial subscription, right? Which is worth of 13,300 rupees, right? So you can use this 13,300 rupees within 30 days to have your practice whatever you want to do, right? So if that expires within 30 days, then you have to go for pay as you go. If that expires, you will go for pay as you go, which means that whatever the monthly bill that which gets generated, it will be deducted from your credit card, right? So that's how things will work. So have your account created by tomorrow when you are here in this class, so that you are on your own in practicing the things, right? So there is a quick link that which is here, which basically talks about how do you go and create a trial subscription. So this is a page that which we are on. Then you should go and log in yourself with a Hotmail, or I think even Gmail ID will work, and then it will take you to the subscription page, right? So where it will ask you some verification and username verification and on and so on. So it's simple, straightforward. Just you need to go and put the required details and then subscribe yourself. Then you are having your own ID. So it will ask you, if you see it, it will ask you the credit card details and so on. I'll share this link. If you have any difficulties, follow this and go ahead and subscribe yourself, right? So this is the link which I'll be sharing on the chat. So have this handy and you can go and subscribe yourself, right? Now let us move on. Then the next step that we talk, steps that which I want to, next thing that which I want to talk is about the Azure regions and high availability, right? So how is that high availability is working? Now yesterday we discussed Azure. Azure is present in multiple geographical locations, right? So they have their presence in Americas, they have their presence in Europe, and they have their presence in APAC, right? And they have their presence in Middle East and Africa, right? So this is where their presence is. These we call it as geographies. Geographies, right? Now within these geographies, you have multiple regions, right? Multiple regions. Now each region has multiple availability zones. Availability zones. Now availability zone and regions. So regions are more in specific, like every geographical location has multiple regions, and one region will have multiple data centers, right? So each region will be in a specific location, and that location will have one or more data centers. So now a group of data centers which has an independent power, independent cooling, and independent network connectivity, that is called as availability zone, right? So every region will have an availability zone. Okay. Now this will basically help to have something called as high availability. Now we'll see how do the availability zones will help in having the high availability and other stuff as we move on. So what we need to understand here is geographies, regions, and zones. So these are needed when we provision the virtual machines, right? So quickly to look at, right? So the regions are circled, and there is something called as availability zone, which is in diamond shape within that particular what you call it as region. So the regions like East US 2 and East US and then Central US and all those things have different availability zones present, right? Now these availability zones, as I said, will have multiple data centers, and those multiple data centers will have an independent power, cooling, and so on, right? So that which basically helps us for high availability, right? We'll go and see when we provision our VMs and other stuff how they will be useful and so on, but for our understanding we should be knowing that the regions and then availability zones which is required for us to move forward. Okay. Now, when we talk about the high availability and other stuff, we will discuss in detail. There is something called as a virtual machine scale set, or there's something called as availability zones, and there's something called as availability sets itself, that which will help us for high availability when we go with a disaster recovery or redundancy that which is needed for our solution, right? So at this point of time, just remember that regions, geographies, and then availability zones. So this is something that which terminology we need to know. Okay, so let us move on. So we have these regions, geographies, and then availability zones, and then we'll go to virtual machines itself. So this is where we will be starting today, right? Now virtual machine, what is a virtual machine? It is a component or a resource, right? It is a component or resource on the Azure. Resource on Azure. Now each component on Azure is called as a resource, right? So VM is also called as a resource. Okay. Now this VM has multiple parameters that which are needed to create, right? What are those parameters? Those parameters include the name of the VM, right? Name of the VM, right? Location of the VM, right? Where exactly this VM should sit. Subscription of the VM, subscription of the VM, right? Which means that under which geographical location this VM will be, or in which geographical location this VM will be. That is a subscription, right? And image, what image that this VM should use, right? What image? Is it 2012, 2019, Linux, or so on, right? And then you will have a network components. Network, right? What network it has to use, what disk it has to use, right? What disk it has to use. And does it need monitoring? If yes, what monitoring, right? So all these things are different parameters when it comes to the virtual machine, and each parameter is kind of tagged to this VM, so that those settings are embedded when you create your virtual machine, right? Now, as I said, virtual machine is a resource, and this resource, before you create a virtual machine, should go and fall into something called as resource group. Resource group. So before you create any resource in Azure, you have to first create a resource group. Now, what a resource group is nothing but a group of resources. So it can be your virtual machine, it can be your network card, it can be your load balancer, it can be an application instance, and all those things that which are meeting certain category or criteria will fall under one resource group. For example, I am creating multiple resource for a project called project A. Then what I'll do, all the resource of this project A, I'll put it in a resource group called project A, right? Or I am creating a production environment, then I can go and put all the resources pertaining to this particular production environment in a resource group called production, right? Now you understood what a resource group is. A resource group is needed and is mandatory for our virtual machines or any resource that which you create, which means before you go and create any resource, you have to first create a resource group, okay? And apart from the resource group, there is something called as subscription. Subscription, right? Now when I subscribe myself to Azure, then what I'll get something called as account, and that account will also have a subscription ID. Now if you see it, my account, that whatever I am using here is the email address, that whatever is listed here, right? That is the email address to which I subscribed. And this account, that whenever I create an account, will at least have one subscription. If I go to the cost management, right, you will see something called as subscriptions here. Now what a subscription is? A subscription is nothing but it is a feature which will help you to tag your resource to a right billing. So subscription is used for billing purpose. What it means is one account can have multiple subscriptions. So if you are a organization which have got multiple subscriptions, what it means that you can put your billing based on certain project requirement as well. If I have 10 projects, I can go and create 10 subscriptions, and I'll create billing for those individual projects, right, project wise. That is the advantage you get when you go with subscriptions. Now there are multiple types of subscriptions that are there. The one that what you are seeing here is pay as you go, but if you want, you can change the subscription as well. That we will be discussing tomorrow when we discuss about the subscriptions and other stuff, but you can change the subscription, right? So every subscription will have a subscription ID which is unique. So when you are writing some code to provision your infrastructure, you will be using the subscription ID rather than the subscription name, right? So subscription is another important and mandatory thing for any resource before you provision, and this is used for billing, right? This is used for billing. Now when you create your account, which means that there will be a subscription which is getting created. So what it also means is there will be at least one subscription when you sign up within the when you sign up with the Azure portal, right? So that is a subscription, right? So you had understood resource group, we had understood subscription. Of course, in detail we will be discussing tomorrow what are the different types of subscription. Here you have something called as pay as you go, you have something called as development subscription, you have something called as enterprise agreement, and so on. So that we will be seeing tomorrow, okay, when we discuss more about the subscriptions and which one you will be selecting when. But for today, what we'll understand is, we'll understand a subscription is nothing but, for a billing perspective, we'll use this particular item, okay, right? So a resource group, a subscription, and the third one is the location, right? Location. Location. So location is something that which you will be selecting based on the region, right? So here you will have a geographies, right? Within this geography you will have multiple regions, right? So when you go to the region, right, these are the different regions, and all these regions are listed when you create any resource, right? So which will basically help you to select the region in which you want to provision the resource, right? You are provisioning a load balancer, let us say, then you will be putting that in a region that which you want, right? So if it is Americas, this is the region, Europe, these are the regions, right, and so on. So when you create a resource, you will be asked to select the region. So that's the reason you should also have the location details. So what it means is, before you plan the deployment of the resource, you should have all these things in place, right? So you need to make sure that you know which region you are deploying your resource, okay? Now the fourth one is size of the virtual machine. The size of the virtual machine is very important, because based on the size requirement you will be selecting the required virtual machine in the set of virtual machines that which are available, or in the sizes list of the size of the VMs that which are available. So there are multiple types of virtual machines. When we talk about sizes, there's something called as compute optimized, there's something called as memory optimized, there's something called as storage optimized, right? And there's also something called as general purpose, which is general usage. And you also have some virtual machine type for GPU. And within each category, there are subcategories of virtual machines, right? So under memory optimized, you have different types. Under compute optimized, different types, and storage optimized, you have different types. Now, at your design phase itself, at your design phase, or when you go and write a detailed design and so on, then you will know, or at least at the design phase, you will know what are the requirements of your project, right? And based on your requirements, you will derive the compute resources required for your virtual machines. That point you will understand whether you need a memory optimized or CPU optimized or storage optimized, and if you are using some graphical related stuff, then you will go with GPU related virtual machines, right? So let us quickly see, where do I find those sizes, right? Virtual machine sizes. Right. So these are the different sizes of virtual machines that which you have. The first one is the general purpose. So under this, there are multiple sub sizes, the type and then sizes, right? B, D, and so on, right? Under compute optimized, you'll have FSV2, which is basically, if you want to have, if you have an application which is, which requires a high CPU, then we will go with FSV2. And if you have memory optimized, if you go for memory optimized, what it means that your application, whatever are sitting on the VM, it requires more memory when compared to the CPU. And there are too many reads and writes to the storage, and let us say you are a database application you are putting, and it needs so much read and write to the server itself, then you can go with storage optimized. And within this there are two sizes, right? You can see LSV2 and LS. And if you are having a GPU requirement, then you can go with NV and NVV2 and so on, right? And there is also something called as high performance compute. So if you need a very high performance machines, then you can go with high performance computes, right? Now likewise, these are the different types of virtual machines and their sizes. And the machine that what you select will be under one of these types. Now let us say that you are into dev test environment and you are doing some testing and so on, then you can go with general purpose. And if anything beyond that, you just take a call based on your requirement, whether you want to go with compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized, or GPU, right? So these are the different types of, virtual machines and their sizes. And this is for Windows, and you will see the same stuff for Linux machines also, right? You see same thing for Linux machine also, right? So these are the different types and sizes. So before you go and create your virtual machine, you should have that information in hand, which type of virtual machine you are going to go and use, right? That is another requirement. Okay. The next one is disk. How many disks I need? The OS and data disks, right? There are two types of disks, right? When you create a VM, by default your OS disk is created, right? And when you create a OS disk or any disk for that matter, there are three types of disks. One is premium SSD, and the second one is standard SSD, and third one is standard HDD, right? Now each one will vary. What is the difference here? It is the difference here is the performance, right? The difference here is performance. So based on the disk that which you select, you will get the performance of that virtual machine, right? So that is another thing that which you should be knowing before you go and provision any virtual machine, right? And the last one, which is very mandatory and important one, is your network, right? Network. So you need to understand or create something called as virtual network before you provision the virtual machine itself. Virtual network. Now what is a virtual network? Virtual network, you can call it as network boundary, right? You can call it as a network boundary. So one Azure environment can have multiple virtual networks, right? One Azure environment can have multiple virtual network, and we call them as VNets. Virtual network is called as VNet, right? You can have multiple networks, virtual network 1, virtual network 2, and so on. So a virtual network is a network boundary. That's what we need to understand. Now, resources in one virtual network will not be able to communicate with the resources in another virtual network by default. What it means, all the resources within one virtual network will communicate with each of them, but across the virtual networks, they will not be able to communicate. So VNet 1 will not be able to access the resources in VNet 2 by default. So you can enable that communication by some means. We will be discussing in our networking stuff, but by default they will not be able to communicate with each other. Now each virtual network will have something called as multiple subnets. Multiple subnets. So you can have multiple subnets within one virtual network, right? So if all the subnets within one virtual network will be able to communicate with each of them, which means Since we are saying resources in each virtual network will be able to communicate with each of them, since the subnets are part of the virtual network, which means the resources within the subnet will be able to communicate with each other within the virtual network. So subnet 1 resources will be able to communicate in subnet resources in subnet 4 and so on. There is no restriction as such. Now each virtual network will have something called as address space. Address space. Right? So that address space defines what is the address IP addresses that which the machines in the subnets will get. Let us say that you are going with a 10.x.x.x subnet or address space with /16. We'll discuss what /16/24, this is called a seeder. The address space of the virtual network is 10.x, then the subnets will get a subset of the address space that whatever you have at the virtual network. What it means, a subnet 1 will share some of the IPs in 10.x, subnet 2 will share some of the IPs in 10.x, and subnet 4 and so on. So whatever the address space you define at the virtual network level, you will also define an address space at subnet level using the address space that which is available at virtual network layer, right? So we can say that 10.0.1.x, right? So subnet 1 is using again a 10.0.1.x IP address, which is a subset of 10.x.x.x.x/16 IP address. So as subnet 2, so as subnet 3, and so as subnet 4. So what we need to understand here is virtual network, a network boundary. Each virtual network will have multiple subnets, and resources within the virtual network will be able to communicate with each other without any restrictions. And virtual network will have an address space, and that address space will be used by your subnets. What it means is a subnet will have a subset of IP addresses which are defined at virtual network layer or virtual network level. So this can also have its own address space. Let us say 172.x.x.x and so on, right? And the subnets that whatever you have here will get the IP address in 172.range. Right? Likewise, based on your requirement, based on your network topology or network design that which you have, you can go and put multiple virtual network within the Azure. We'll be discussing all these things in detail, but for our understanding to create the virtual machines and all that stuff, basic understanding, we should know all these concepts. That's why I'm just taking you through this. Now we are saying that machines within the subnet will be able to communicate with machines within the virtual network will be able to communicate with each other, and virtual network will have subnets, and there is no restrictions between the subnet, right? Now let us say you are dividing the subnets based on your requirement. Subnet 1 is, let us say subnet 1 is DMZ. Let us say subnet 1 is DMZ, okay? It's your DMZ. DMZ is a restricted environment, right? So, and subnet 2 is staging. And subnet 3, let us say it is a prod. And all these are part of a single VNet. And you want to restrict the traffic communication between these two subnets because by default there is no restriction as such, right? Now how do you go and put that restriction? There comes something called as network security group. Something called as network security group. Network security group. We call it as NSG, network security group. Now what is this network security group? A network security group, we can call it as a firewall or a software firewall, you can call it as. Then what you do, you go and put this NSG between your subnets. You can configure a NSG between the subnets, right? Now between the subnets, you are going to go and configure this network security group. What it means that you can write certain rules telling that network security group, here are the ports that which you need to allow. Here is the source and destination that which you can allow the communication on this particular port. These are the inbound rules, these are the outbound rules. Drop the traffic if the port number is so and so and so on, right? So any firewall, what is that, what will be the configuration on any firewall? Any firewall will have certain rules, right? Firewall rules. So what are these rules? Inbound rules and outbound rules. So we call this inbound rules as ingress and egress. There is another name for that as well. Okay, so let us go with inbound rules name because easy for remembering. So inbound rules, any rule, what will happen? What are the parameters that which are needed? Source, right? Whether it is internet, whether it is anything, or whether it is within the virtual network and so on. We'll be seeing that when we go with the network security group. Source or source IP address or source IP range also. There could be a range. Or there could be multiple source IP ranges. You can do it by putting comma between them. And then source port number, right? Source port number. And then destination IP address and destination port number. Right? And what is that you want to do? Condition, right? Allow or deny. Whether you are allowing the traffic or denying the traffic. Right? And then a priority, which basically gives some weight to the rule that which you are creating. Right? And a priority. So similar thing will be there for your outbound rules. So what you do here is, between the network security groups, if you want to restrict the traffic, you go and write a network security or put a NSG and write some rules as per your requirement. You don't want to, you want to allow only HTTP traffic between production and staging, then I'll create a network security group and write a rule with port 80, right? So likewise, you can write multiple rules and assign those network security groups to a subnet. So network security groups can be assigned to the subnet. So that's where you are putting some control between the subnets which are part of your virtual networks. Okay, so this is another thing that which is needed. So what is needed within the virtual network? Understanding the address space, creating the right number of addresses, and assigning them to the subnets based on your requirements. And if you want to restrict the communication, putting some network security group rules between them, right? So that is the network part. So this is at high level. Okay, so before you create or deploy a virtual machine, all these things are needed. All these things are needed, right? So any questions if you guys have, then we can take before we move forward. You can unmute yourself and ask if you have any questions. Okay, I'll take it as no. Let us move on. Right. So we understood what are those mandatory things that which are needed. Let us quickly go and see and try to understand different settings within the virtual machine creation. So our first topic will be virtual machines. Tomorrow we'll be seeing subscription and how do we capture image from the virtual machine, and how do we deploy multiple machines using the image. So that's how we will move on, and then we'll discuss high availability of virtual machines and backup of virtual machines and so on. So our first topic will be on virtual machines, right? And after virtual machines, we will either go with networking or storage, and then the other concepts like Active Directory backup and migrations and so on, right? So that's how we'll start. Okay, so let us go and try to create a virtual machine and try to understand each and every setting after the creation of the virtual machine, right? Now, before creation of the virtual machine, what is that thing which we need to create? We need to create something called as resource group. Not only virtual machine, anything for that matter. So let me go and create a resource group. Okay. So a resource group, when you create, it will ask mandatory things like a subscription for billing purpose, and resource group name, and then the region where this particular resource group will sit, right? Now these are the regions that what you had seen on that in that regions portal, right? Are available here, right? All the regions. Okay, so let us go and create a virtual machine, create a resource group. The notification, whatever you see here, will help you to understand the status of that resource that which you are creating or which is created. You can see all that log here as we create additional resources. But let us refresh. So you have a resource group created. So let us go to
Hello.
the virtual machine. Yeah. Any question for me?
No, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Right. Create on add virtual machine. Right. Now, as we discussed, the mandatory fields are subscription, and if you have multiple projects for which you have multiple subscriptions, you go and select the subscription that which you go and this particular virtual machine cost should be put into, right? So because we have only one, I'm selecting the one that what I have. You will also be selecting the resource group from the resource group name that which you have earlier created, right? So select the resource group as RG. The next one is the virtual machine name. A virtual machine name is the name of the VM that which is visible within the portal. That is one thing that which we should know, and this will be the name of your server. So what it means, whatever the name you give here will also be the name of your server. When you go and look at the computer name or server name or type a command called host name, then you will see the same name that whatever you are giving here. So we need to make sure that we are using right name here so that your server will also get the same name once it is provisioned. So can't we change the name once you give the name here? Of course, you can change the name of the server in the operating system, but not here. Right? We can change in the within the OS, but not here. So the best practice is having the same name, whatever you have here, and within the OS as well, right? The host name, that whatever we call it as, right? So let us go and give the name as demo VM1, demo VM1, and the region, right, where you want to put this particular. We had seen the availability zones, right? Now, if you want to put this in the availability zone, then you have to select the availability zone here. We'll be discussing all these things when we discuss about high availability solution, but for our understanding, what we need to know is there is a high availability option when you create the VM itself, right? You can go and select the zone or availability set. This is also another high availability solution, right? Availability set. For this initial initial class, let us not discuss much about this, but just remember that there's an option here within the VM to select the availability zone where it should fall, or how many availability zones you need, right, for this particular virtual machine. Browse the images. Now what image you want, right? There are multiple images. Based on your requirement, you go and select the operating system that which you want, or any image. Let us say that you want a SQL server. There is a preloaded operating system with SQL software. Then you can go and select it. Or if you want a Citrix ADC, which is a NetScaler device, then you can go and select this, right? Or if you are looking for Red Hat Linux and so on, right? Based on your requirement, you can go and select the image that whatever you want. If you have your own customized image, then you can see that in the My Images. Because we don't have anything which is customized, tomorrow we'll be seeing this. How do we customize an image and use that for the deployment? That you will find here in the My Images, right? So for this, what we'll do is we'll go and select a Windows 2016. Let us go to the size. This size that what we had seen here, where is that sizes that which we selected? Yes, so here are the sizes that what we had seen, right? General purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, and so on. So based on your requirement, you will be selecting VM here. That's the reason before you provision a VM, you need to take a decision what family of virtual machine that which I need. You can see a memory optimized. You can also see a storage optimized if you scroll down, and other types of virtual machines, compute optimized, and so on. Right? Now, based on your requirement, the price will also vary, right? And within the general purpose, as you see here, there are multiple sizes, right? AV2, DC, DV2, DSV2, DSV3, and DV3, and so on. And all those sizes are listed here. Within A, you have multiple different sizes, right? Within the general purpose. Now, each size will come with the specifications, right? Each size will come with some specification. So that's the reason you need to go and look at what exactly the size of which of the VM that which you are in need of, right? Let us say that I am in need of one virtual CPU and 2 GB of RAM and two data disks. And you can see what is the IOPS you are getting. Per individual disk you are getting 500, right? So which means that 200 into 500, around 1000 IOPS you are getting. So and the cost that whatever you see here is 3000. And is it a premium disk? No, it is a normal standard disk. Now, if it is a premium disk, then there will be more charges, right? If it is a premium disk, there will be more charges. So based on your requirement, the charges will vary, right? You can see this is a premium disk. So go and select the virtual machine that whatever you want, right? So this is how you can select the size of the VM. So before you put the size, go and look at these things and look at different sizes and select the whatever you are in need of. The next one is the username. So here we will not be able to use inbuilt user accounts. Here you will not be able to use inbuilt user accounts because it says a reserved word, right? So you have to use some other ID. Use some other ID. Now, do you need to allow any ports over the internet? So this is public inbound ports, which means that if you are accessing this machine over the internet, what are the ports that which you are in need of? So it comes with 4 ports by default. If you are using a Linux machine, you can go with 22 for SSH. If you are using a Windows machine, you are going with 3389. Or let us say that you have IIS loaded a web service running on this, then you can go with port 80. And if you have a secure communication on a web portal that which is running, then you can go with port 443. So this will basically create an inbound rule. Where does it create an inbound rule? It creates a network security group, which is your firewall, right? So that we will be seeing anyway. So what we need to know is, so what are those ports that which you are in need of for this machine to access over the internet? For me, I only need one port at this point of time, that is 3389, right? So that's where the inbound ports for your public or internet access, right? And the next one is the license, right? So if you own a license, that means that you already have a agreement with the Microsoft and you purchased licenses for your on-prem requirement or whatever. You can use those licenses here, the Microsoft licenses. Let us say that you have a 2016 licenses, then you can go and use those licenses here if you have an enterprise agreement or whatever. Now that case, you'll go and say that yes, I have a license. Then you select the license type and so on, and then a confirmation, right? Now if you don't know, if you don't have the licenses, then you go and select no. The advantage is there will be a reduction in the overall cost that what you get. There will be saving that which you will be doing if you have your own licenses, right? This is the initial page. Initial blade, we'll call it in Azure as blade. The disk, what type of disk you want? Premium, standard, HDD, right? So let us leave that as premium disk. Now we will be discussing in detail about different types of disks, their speed, and there's something called as managed and unmanaged. If you click on advanced, you will see, right, a managed disk and unmanaged disk. A managed disk at a high level is the disk management is taken care by Azure itself. If you are selecting an unmanaged disk, which means you are taking care of disk management by creating something called as storage account and all those stuff. So it is recommended to go with managed disk, but we'll discuss what is the difference between managed and unmanaged performance wise and the other features whatever you get when you go with managed disk in our storage classes. Okay, so by default you will get a managed disk, which is the recommended one. Okay, now OS disk is standard SSD managed, which means that Azure itself will take care about the disk management. That's what we need to understand today. Okay, now if you want to have additional disks, then you can create and attach, or if you already have a disk which is readily available, you can attach it from here. Okay, so tomorrow we will be seeing how do we create an additional disk and attach it to the machine. That is one. And we'll also see tomorrow how do we attach multiple network interface cards to the machine, right? There could be a requirement. So all those things tomorrow we'll be seeing. Okay, so for today we'll just go with the OS disk, which is premium SSD, and it is a managed disk, which means that Azure will take care of the disk management. Okay, so this is about the disk. Networking, this is what we were discussing, right? A virtual network, a subnet. Now I haven't created any virtual network, right? So we didn't create any virtual network. Now if you don't have a virtual network created, what Azure does is it creates a virtual network on its own when you deploy a virtual machine. Okay, now what is the name it is picking? It is picking resource group name hyphen vnet. That is the name, default name it takes. Okay, now if you are creating if you already have a virtual network, then you will find that in the drop down box. Because we didn't create a virtual network, what it does is it creates a virtual network, and what is the virtual network range, IP address range it takes? It takes 10.x range, which means that 10.0.0.0/16 is the address space that what it picks. Because you haven't created, Then Azure says, okay, you didn't create, I'll create something on my own. That's what is happening now. So if you don't have a VNet created, a default name and default IP address will be assigned. Now what is the default name? It is the resource group name hyphen VNet. What is the default address space that what it picks is 10.0.0.0/16, right? And the subnet that what it picks is again from the 10.x range, which is /24, which means a subset of the IPs that whatever you have here in the VNet. Okay, so virtual network and subnet also it picks with a default name. So if you don't have a VNet created or subnet created, virtual network and subnets are created by Azure itself, and then it will assign a default IP address within 10.x range. Now let us say that 10.0.0.0 is already in use. Then it will create 10.0.1.0 or something, right? 10.1.0.0 it will create, and so on, right? So it looks what is in use, and the next available sequence it will follow. Okay, so that's what we need to understand. So this is virtual network, this is a subnet, and all your machines will get an IP address from 10.0.0.0 range. We'll see once the VM is created from where the IP address it is taking, what is the range of the IP address, and so on. And the next one is the public IP, whether you need a public IP for this VM or not. Yes, I need a public IP. Then you go and select a public IP address from here. This is also a default name that which is picking. If you don't need a public IP, then you go and select a none. Okay, so I need a public IP address. Now, do you want any network security groups that needs to be assigned? I'll leave that as it is. But if you see, because we selected RDP in our initial blade, you see that RDP 3389 is selected here, which means that there is an inbound rule that which is getting created within your network security group for the port 3389, right? Let us move on. Do you need diagnostics for this class? No. Extensions, we'll discuss about this tomorrow, and then we'll review and create. Okay, so let us quickly complete this. Okay, let us go and create it. Now what you see here is it is charged based on hours, right? Not in months, right? So the hourly basis that what this particular VM is charged is 8 rupees 30 pice, so on, right? So that's how you get be charged on this particular VM. Now you'll see the status of this one. Once you click on create, you can see the status of this here in the notifications, right? It is initializing the deployment, right? Let that get created. Any questions if you have, then we can take before we move. I think we'll take another 10 minutes to complete this part. Another 10, maximum another 10 minutes. Then in the meantime, when this gets deployed, just if you have any questions, we can take it. Right, so you can see the status of this VM in a creation state. There are multiple status that which you can see based on the whether you powered off, whether it is deallocated and powered off, and so on. That will also be discussed. But when a VM is deploying, the status of this VM will be in creating state. Now, what is the IP address it picked? It picked 10.0.0.4. Now the question comes, where are the other IP addresses? Right, 10.0.0.1, 10.0.0.2, 10.0.0.3. By default, there will be few addresses which will be reserved by the Azure itself, right? So 0.0.1 will be a gateway kind of thing, and the other two also will be reserved by Azure. That we will be discussing what are those IP addresses that which will be reserved and why, and can we use them, can we not use them, and how do we assign a static IP address, how do we convert this IP address into static, and so on, which we will be discussing as we move on. But what we need to understand is the IP address what any VM picks starts from 0.4, then 0.5, and so on, right? So it won't assign first 3 IP addresses or first 4 IP addresses. Right, let us quickly get into the resource group once to see what are those things that which are part of the resource group. Now we created only one VM as a part of this particular resource group, but what you see here is multiple resources. A VM itself is a resource, a disk is another resource, a network interface card is another resource, a public IP address is another resource, your firewall rules is another resource, your virtual network is another resource. So what we need to understand here is virtual machine has multiple components which are independent of each other. So if you want to delete a network interface card, you can delete and assign, create a new network interface and assign it to the VM. That means it is not at the OS level, but it is at the Azure level itself. If you want to remove this public IP address, go and just delete this particular resource, the public IP address is removed, and so on the other resources, which means these resources can be decoupled from your virtual machines easily, and you can create a new resource and tag it to the virtual machine itself. So the multiple components that which you created as a part of the resource creation, when I say the resource creation, the virtual machine creation, they are all again independent resources. Okay, so the network interface card itself is an independent resource, and the IP address is assigned to the network interface card, not to the OS, right? So a network interface card is an independent entity, so as your IP address, so as a network security group, so as your virtual network, and so on. So a virtual network, when you create, it creates multiple resources, and these resources are tagged to your VM to get the required configuration. So before I create a virtual machine, I can go and create a network interface card, right? Before I create a virtual machine, I can go and create an IP address. Before I create a virtual machine, I can also go and create a disk and use it at the later point of time, right? So it's not at the VM creation you can create the resources, but also you can create the resources before you actually create your VM and tag it to the VM during the virtual machine creation. That's how you actually code when you deploy the virtual machine using PowerShell or Azure CLI or some .NET code or whatever, right? So that we'll be seeing as we move on when we use the PowerShell and other stuff. How do we create these resources and tag them to the virtual machine that which you create, right? So what I'm trying to explain you here is a resource group. When you look at the resource that which you created, that is VM here in our case, has got multiple independent resources, and these resources are required for the VM deployment. Okay, so that is what we should know. Okay, let us go back to the virtual machine itself and see if it is the status is changed. The status of the VM is running, but it means that your VM is deployed. And you can also see a public IP address assigned to this particular machine because you selected during the creation of the virtual machine saying that I need a public IP address. And one important thing that which we need to know is when you reboot or shut down and power on this virtual machine, your public IP address may change, which means the public IP address that which is getting assigned to your virtual machine is dynamic. Of course, you can reserve this. We'll see that how do we reserve this, but by default the public IP address assigned to any of the virtual machine or any resource within the Azure is dynamic, You need to put that into a static by changing certain settings. Okay. Now let us go and quickly try to access and see within the virtual machine couple of things, and then we'll again catch up the extension of this tomorrow because we are short of time today. So let us quickly connect to this particular machine. There are few important things that which we should know when we log into this. Right, use the username and password that you gave during the creation. So every virtual machine you create will have a temporary disk assigned. Apart from the operating system disk, there will be another disk called as temporary disk, which will be assigned to the virtual machine. So what it means, when you provision a virtual machine, there will be two disks. If you are not having a data disk, again a separate one, operating system disk as well as a temporary disk. A temporary disk is used by your Azure for its own purpose, and you should not have any data that which will be stored here on this particular one. Let us quickly look at what are the disks that which are available. If I go to the PC, you will see a C drive and a D drive. Right? A D drive is a temporary drive. What it tells is don't put anything here, right? So the data stored here will be lost, so don't try to copy anything here. Now Azure uses this for its own purpose, so we should not be using this particular, what you call it as, disk. So this is for information, so which is very important. And if in production, don't try to put anything here, or even in dev test you cannot put anything here. If you reboot the machine, the data whatever you have in temporary drive is gone, right? So don't put anything here. So that is another important thing. Now let us go and quickly see what is the host name it picks. The host name what it picks here is the same name that what you gave here at the virtual machine, right? What is the name you gave here is the same name that which is picked by your virtual machine. Now can I change this name? Of course, at OS level you can go and change it, but for your management purpose it will be very difficult to have two different names at Azure level and one different one at your VM level. So that is the reason it is recommended to have the same name within the host and within the Azure portal itself. So that's the reason when you give the name of the VM, just make sure that you are giving the right name, so that you don't end up changing it again at the later point of time, right? So this is very important. Okay, so we'll stop here, and tomorrow we will be discussing all these what you call different settings that what you have within the virtual machines, which are very important and needed for us. And what we also discuss is how do we attach multiple network cards to the virtual machine, how do we add additional disks to the virtual machine, and if you want to increase the size, today let us say that you selected some size, and you want an additional different requirement all of a sudden. Can I change the size of the VM? If yes, how do I do that? What are the will there be an outage, and so on we'll be discussing. And we'll also discuss what are the different stages of a virtual machine, and we'll see how do we capture image of a virtual machine. So that will be our class tomorrow. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask whatever we discussed on whatever we discussed today.
So if we have, I mean, on a real-time scenario, we are going to install like multiple virtual machines. So how are we going to manage multiple virtual machines? It's in the same window?
So basically we are not going to use portal if you are deploying multiple images. So there you need to use ARM templates, right? So which is JSON code, or you can also write some code in Visual Studio.NET or PowerShell. That's how we will be deploying multiple images, right? So it's very tough for us to go and select each and every option and deploy, right? So we will be using a template, and using that template will have a predefined values, and there could be some variable values also within that, which you will be anyway giving during the execution of that code, whether it can be a JSON template or it can be a PowerShell or whatever, right? So that's how we'll be deploying multiple virtual machines. So we'll not be using this portal to deploy multiple virtual machines. So this is the initial class. So that's the reason we are using the portal to understand, what are those things that which are needed. But for multiple deployments, you will either use inbuilt ARM templates or PowerShell or some code, or there are third-party orchestration tools like Terraform and other stuff that can also be used. So you will be using either Azure Resource Manager ARM templates or PowerShell or some third-party tools like Terraform and other stuff when you go with bulk deployment or a deployment which has got hundreds of machines and so on, right?
Gotcha. Got it.
And any other questions, guys? Okay, so if you don't have any questions, then that's all for today. As I said, tomorrow we'll be looking at an extension of these virtual machines, and as we move on, it will be interesting. So we'll catch up tomorrow at the same
Hey,
time.
Vijay,
Please,
quick
please,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, like, will there be any console-like thing, like to check the status of the instance or VM?
Okay, so if you compare that with your hypervisor environment like VMware or other thing where you are looking for a console, that level of console you don't have, but you have some serial console where you can troubleshoot if you have any issues at OS level by getting into a command prompt of PowerShell. That is one thing which is there. And you also have something screen which tells or gives you what is the current state of your VM, which means if it is stuck at boot, right? Let us say that boot file is not loading or some boot file error, something, you can see that image. But when it comes to the troubleshooting part, you will be using a different method that which we will be discussing either by downloading the image or by contacting the support. There are 3 or 4 different situations and scenarios, right? So if it is a boot issue, then we have a different method. If it is the OS is up and you are not able to access, then you can go through the serial port and connect to it. So there are different scenarios. There are ways to troubleshoot it. But to answer your question straight, can I get a console where I go and take Control Alt Del and get into that using local admin? No. But there are ways to access your OS in case of there are any issues.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions, guys? Okay, thank you. Thanks for your attendance, and we'll meet tomorrow. Have a great day or good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay.